Hey, welcome to the show. What we're going to go over today is something that comes up every football season, it seems like, where people want to be able to track the stats of teams and they think they're going to win $1 million in fantasy football or something. I've tried, it doesn't help. It's all a crapshoot, but nonetheless, it is kind of cool to be able to have these tools available to us in Excel to put stuff together to analyze sports statistics. So let's the thing that I've come across is the win-loss streaks. So let's look at a comprehensive sort of analysis of how to pull these stats and get what we want out of them. So, first of all, I need a list of all the NFL teams. And I've got that loaded up here on Chrome. I'm just going to copy and paste this. And I'm going to give myself a header. Just say team. And then paste. There we go. And the first thing I'm going to do, we're going to be doing this in Power Query. So I'm going to hit Alt-APT. And that's going to load it up into Power Query. And I don't want it to change the type, and I'm just going to call this teams. Alright, that's good enough for now. Now we need to go and I had to search for, this website that has all the wins and losses, but yeah, this one works pretty well. So I'll just copy this. And in here in Power Query, I'm just going to go to New Source, and we're going to make a new query that's based off of a web query. So I can post that, or paste that in rather. And it's asking if we have any sort of access things, if you need to use a sign in. This is a public website, so anonymous is fine. And it's going to take a minute to load it up, and you can see we've got a few different tables that this is bringing back. So you're going to have to go through and find out which table it is that you want. And if we look here, this is what we're looking for, the wins and losses. So I'm going to say OK. And really the only column I need here is this result column. So I'm going to say choose columns and uncheck everything but result. All right, and for our purposes right now, I don't care about the scores. So I'm going to split this column by delimiter. And we're going to just use the space. That's good. And I'm going to do a little bit of cleanup here. I don't need change type. I can rename these to make them a little cleaner when you're looking in the advanced editor. Removed other columns. I'm just going to call this split and get rid of that change type. Alright. And now I can remove this column. And I want to, if we look at our original data here, I want to have a row for each team. This is just one team that we're looking at, so I want to transpose this from columns to rows. So under the transform column, I'm just going to hit transpose. And that's exactly what we wanted. Good. It's done. We'll do a little bit more cleanup here. Just going to say RC for removed column, and we'll say transpose. All right, that's good. And I'm going to give this a name. I'm just going to say get win-loss. And now what I want to do, like this is good and well for one team, but I want to get it for all of the teams. So instead of having this just be a query on its own, we're going to turn it into a function. So I'm going to go to the Home tab and click on Advanced Editor. And we're going to make some variables. So here we go. So I'm going to say team is text, and this is going to be as a table and use our arrow syntax. And I'm going to put the team here. So I'm going to say and team. And actually I don't need another and because we're not putting anything else in this string. But if we look at our original data, the team has a space. And if you were paying attention to that URL just now that I got done deleting, it was separated by a hyphen. So we need to do something to this to take care of that. So we're just going to say text.replace. Oop, lost my team there. And we're going to say replace spaces with dashes. And that should be all we have to do to turn this into a custom function that we can use. So I'm just going to click on done. Can barely see that. And there we go. We've got our function and we've got our teams loaded up here. So now what we can do is we can go to add column and we're going to invoke the custom function that we just made. And we can name this column something. It's fine, just leaving it as custom. We're going to select the custom function that we just made. And it's smart enough to know that it's going to take a column as a argument, and the only one that we have is teams, so that's fine. And it is reaching out to the internet and doing all of these get and transforms to get it into that transpose table that we were looking at before. So it does take a minute to load it up, but not too bad. It's a lot better than going to the internet every week and doing this manually. All right. This is taking a lot longer than I expected. I don't have anything else to talk about right now. Come on, internet. I might end up cutting this out because... All right, there we go. Good Lord, that took forever. All right. And if I click on here, I'm going to expand all of these columns. I don't want to use the original column as a prefix, so I'll just do that and click OK. There we go. We've got all of our wins and losses. They're synced up with the teams that they were supposed to, but we've got column 1, column 2. That's not really good. We want these headers to say week 1, week 2. So that's easy enough to take care of. We're just going to go back to our home tab and we're going to go to this use first rows headers and hit the arrow. We're going to use headers as first row. That's going to demote the headers down, and I'm just going to go over here to the very end, select all of my columns, and then we're just going to do a replace. So replace values, and we're going to say replace anything that says column with week and a space. Now we've got our weeks, and we just need to promote them back to being headers. So we'll click on use first row as headers. And there we go. Weeks in the header rows, so that's good. Now what we want to do is get all these columns into rows. And the way we do that is we can click on the teams, go up to transform, and we're going to unpivot other columns. There we go. And we don't really need this attribute column, but for the sake of not creating unnecessary steps, we'll just leave it. So what we need to do now is we need to group it together by the team and the value. And what we're going to do is we're going to use something in the group that's going to make anything that's like the other thing group together, even if it's within the same thing. So it's a horrible explanation, but if we look at the cardinals here, it's going to group all these L's together, all these W's together, all these L's together, until we get to the very end of the cardinals. And it's going to do that for each team. You'll see what I'm talking about. So I'm going to just click on both of these. Oops. Hold Control and click that. Go to my Home tab, and we're going to group by. So it's got by teams and by value. You can give the column a name, but that's fine. Count. and I'm going to change it to all rows. Let me drag that up so you can see. All rows. No aggregation. Click OK. Alright. And that looks like what we need. So let me drag this up a bit. If I click on these tables, you can see a little preview of what's in each of them. So it's grouped everything together. That's nice. All the wins and losses and ties are grouped together. So what I want to do now is I actually want an index column for each one of these tables. So I can go into our code up here and just add it up here. So right here where it says each, I'm just going to say table.addIndexColumn underscore refers to the table that we're on, and we're going to give it a title of ID, and it's going to start at 1. So now if I click on the preview, you can see it's added this index column. And what we're going to do is we're going to use that to see what the longest streak is, I think. Let's see, we want to look at the longest win streak, the longest lose streak, and we're going to get the latest streak. So I want to say get max of this. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to add a new column. Let's do the max first. So I'm going to say under add column, new custom column, we're going to say max, that's what we're calling it. And for now, we're just going to do this step by step. So I'm going to say table.column. And we're going to refer to the column that has tables in it, which is count. And we can see in this little preview here the columns that we want to look at. So what we want is to look at this ID column. Oh, and that needs to be in quotes. All right. No syntax errors. We click OK and look at what we have. So that converted it into a list. So now I just want the max value of those. So I'm going to go back up into our formula here and just say list.max, and then close that out with some parentheses and hit enter. So now we've got all of our max values. That's good. And now what we want to do is, actually, let's go back to our grouped rows. I want to make sure table.group, I want to add, make sure that we have, you can't see, we're too far over. Oops. Right here at the very last argument, I'm going to say group kind. Oops. What happened? Group kind local. All right, that's good. Good. That looks better. And we'll go back down here. So we've got our maxes, and now we want to group it just by the team name. So we're going to go back to the home tab, and we're going to group again, and it's going to be just by the team. And once again, we're not going to use any aggregation. We're just going to say all rows. Click OK. And we look through here, and this looks good. This is what we want. We've got each group of wins and losses are grouped together and accessible in this column in each of these table objects. So now I want to look and get which one of these tables has the longest win streak. So let's do that. We're going to add another column. Custom column. And we're going to say table.add column. Oh wait, no, sorry. Let's get out of there. lost track of what I was doing. Custom column. That's going to add the column. And now we want to say table.selectRows. And we're going to look at what's in count. And we're going to say for each one, what are we going to say? So we want it to filter it by values. So we're going to say the value is equal to a win. So let's see what that looks like. If we click on our preview, now we can see that everything has just been, we've weeded out all the losses. And now we can say, we're going to say table.lastN, because we just want the, oh wait, no, wait. We want the max. So we're going to say, if we go here and we just add brackets and say max, what does that do? That turns it into a list. Good. That's what we want. So these are just wins. And now what we can do is we can use list.max to get our longest win streak. So I'm going to go back up to our formula, say list.max, close this out, and there we go. So when I added this, I'm going to go back over here and just click on the gear. And instead of custom, I'm just going to call this win streak. There we go. So we can see the Baltimore Ravens had a nice 12-game win streak. Good for them. So now we want loss streak. So it's going to be the exact same process. So we're going to add another custom column. I'm going to say table.selectRows. We're going to be looking at the count column. And we're going to say each value is equal to L. So we're just going to have losses now. There we go. If we look at our preview, you can see these are all losses. We're going to extract just the max column by adding brackets to the very end of this and saying max. Turns it into a list. Now we can wrap this in a list.max formula. And go to the end. And again, I forgot to name my column, so I'm going to hit the gear on this step that we're on and just call this loss streak. Oops, capitalize. Okay. So again, the Ravens here had a 12-game win streak and a 2-game loss streak. So this is all working. That jives with what we did before. So now the other thing that I saw, and this was kind of an interesting one, when I did this before answering questions on a forum, what he really wanted, he didn't want the win streak, he didn't want the loss streak. All he wanted was whatever the last streak was. He wanted to be able to say, whether it was wins or losses, say their last streak was 2 wins or 4 losses, whatever it happens to be. So let's figure out how to get that. So if we look at our table, these are all in order. So whatever the last streak was is going to be, oh, you can't see this. Let me pull it up. Whatever the last streak was is going to be whatever this last row is. So let's figure out how we're going to isolate that. So we're going to need to add another column. So custom column. And this one we're going to call last streak. And we're going to say table.lastN. We're going to be referring to the count. and we're going to return the last row, one last row. Click OK. And if we click on our preview, we can see that it's just pulling back that last value. Cool. So now what we want to do is we really just want to extract the value and the number in this max. So how do we do that? So if we look here, we can do the exact same thing that we did before. So I'm going to extract the W by going to the very end here, adding brackets, and saying value, because that's a column that has the W's or L's. Enter. We have a list. All right. Now we don't want a list. We want this to be an actual value. So we're going to add curly brackets, which allows us to say what position of the list we want to extract. It's going to be the first. Everything here is 0 based, so we're going to hit 0. Ooh, that didn't work. Huh. Oh, I think we got too many brackets here. There we go. So we've got our loss there. Now we can just copy this entire thing. And we can say and then paste that same thing. And the only thing we're going to have to change is value. We don't want value anymore. We want the ID, or that ID or index column. But we're going to get an error because that's a number, and you can't mix numbers with strings very well. Oh, and it also says ID isn't found. Oh, I called it max. Okay. Max. Not max ID. It's just max. But we still have an error, and we see this text and number problem. That's fine. We can just wrap that last bit in another function called text.from, which will just convert it from a number to text. Hit enter. Cool. Now we have all the things that we wanted. We've got our win streak, our loss streak, and our last streak. But I also want to hook this up with what we had in the beginning. All those columns with the wins and losses, so you can kind of see it together. So how do we do that? Well, if we go back and look at some of our steps, let's get back to where we had just those wins and losses. So I think if I hit expanded get wins and losses, and we look, okay, no, so we wanted to go a couple down to where we've changed these columns. So I'm going to go back to our steps and go to promoted headers. I think that's the one that we want. Let's take a look. Our headers are good. Go to the end just to make sure. All right, cool. Everything looks good. So now I'm going to go back to where we were, our very last step, and I'm going to go to Home and Merge Queries. I'm going to merge this query with itself. So we're going to say Merge Queries. We're already on this query up here by default. We only have one other query to link this up to anyway, and I'm just going to link them on the teams. Click OK. But I don't want to link this with itself. That doesn't really make any sense. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go up here and see, all right, added custom 3. That's the step that we're on. I want to change that to the step where we were just looking, which is promoted headers. So I'm just going to say promoted headers, comma, I just deleted a bunch of stuff. That looks good. There we go. And if I scroll all the way to the right, you can't see it very well. Now we've got this last column that we just added, and if we look at the preview, this has all the things that we want. So I'm just going to go back over here. Oops. click this little icon on our last column that we made. And all we want to get out of here is our win streak, our loss streak, and our last streak. Click OK. And now we've got everything that we wanted. So I'm just going to go back here. We're going to close and load to. And we'll just say new worksheet. That's fine. Click OK. And again, it's going to take a little while to load all this up. We're pretty much done here at this point. So I'll just say that thanks for coming in and watching this video. If you have any questions, leave them for me in the comments. I'll be glad to answer anything. I hope this was useful, and hopefully when August and September roll around, we have NFL games to actually track. Hopefully this coronavirus nonsense is over by then. So I just want to let this actually load. There we go. Now I'm just going to scale this down a bit. I know that's hard to really look at, but do some formatting here. We'll just center everything. And we can change the table design to something a little better looking. I like these dark themes. There we go. And, you know, last season is over now, so this is kind of pointless, but you can imagine if we're halfway through the season or something, this would be more useful. And then every week you just come into your sheet, open this workbook up and hit refresh, and it's going to reach out into the internet, bring back all the current stats, and give you all these streak numbers that we wanted to look at. So again, hopefully that's helpful, and happy fantasy football betting in this upcoming season. Thanks for watching. Bye.